Good evening and welcome to the Hearthstone Half Hour. I'm Hammy out of felcraft.org, and in episode 11 we are going to be running through a bit about the art of the deck list and how to use it safely, or how to copy a deck list and get to learn it without getting into too much trouble. It's been a little while since the last episode, apologies for that. What's been going on in the meantime, we've had a new patch where there's been a whole bunch of stuff going on. As a rough summary, if you're a new player, there's been an introduction of a more open ranked mode where you can see how you're ranking up, compare yourself to other people and similar. So introducing the ladder concept that Blizzard games like StarCraft 2, for example, are familiar for. Win games move up, lose games move down, but it's all very transparent and visible. There have been a few changes to a couple of cards that the developers wanted to try and balance, and a few other little bits and pieces introduced as well. The primary things in terms of class balance for now are that priests have had a little change to mind control. It now costs a bit more mana. There have been another change to hunters. Unleash the Hounds, a card that was allowing hunters with the right deck setup and a bit of luck to effectively one turn knock out people. That's also been toned down a little bit, and mages have been left pretty much the same for the moment to rampage their way through ranked and similar. But today's episode is going to be about using deck lists and how to use one safely, how to get to learn one relatively safely. It's something that happens in a lot of card games, and we're going to be using Priest as an example because I've played a Priest for a while. I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but I've definitely got my sort of head underneath the skin of the class. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump out of my overlay and let's jump into game. So using a deck list in a collectible card game. Whether you're playing Magic the Gathering or Pokemon, and Hearthstone is no different. People love to list their decks, people love to analyse their decks. It's no different to looking at someone's particular football team or particular kit or layout or perks in a Call of Duty game. What do they use to help them do the best possible job? And for a new player, if you're trying to learn a class, if you've maybe learned a class a bit but want to take it to the next level, it's natural that you go out there in a card game environment and you go and look at other people's decks. You'll find them on loads of different sites. Could be Hearthporn, Hearthhead, the official Blizzard forums as well for Hearthstone. People love listing their 30 card decks, telling you what's in them, and theory crafting. Now, theory crafting, if you've not heard the term before, is effectively a game of theoretical rock, paper, scissors. It's, oh, well, that's good on paper, but what would happen if it played against this? What would happen if it played against that? Dropping some cards, adding other ones in, and really testing the deck out in a theoretical environment. So it's going to be natural as a new player that you're going to want to take a look at some other people's decks, and it happens. People go out and try and find what they think is the best deck on paper, build that deck immediately, play it, and then wonder why they're having problems or wonder why they don't start instant winning. Now, it may be a very good deck, but without understanding of how the deck works and without a bit of an understanding of the other classes and of what's known as the metagame in terms of what other decks are out there and how they work against yours, you can have, in theory, the strongest deck in the world, but in practice you'll actually struggle if you don't know what you're playing against, and most importantly, if you don't know how to play your deck correctly. So in today's episode, I'm going to go through an example of a deck that I've copied to see how it works as much as I can with the cards that I have, run through some of the concepts behind it that I've discovered, and just give you a bit of an idea as to how I went about having a look at the deck list, trying to understand it, and then how that actually translated into me playing it in some ranked ladder. And then if we have time by the end of this episode, I'll jump into one ranked ladder game. I'm at about rank 18, 19, nothing too high at the moment, but I've got out of the level where it's just sort of people testing it out, and I've got into the level of where people have got some pretty constructed decks. So that gives you a real life example of how that's come together. So as I've said to you, and as you've seen if you've tuned into previous episodes, I've been working with Priest, and this deck that I have actually pulled together here is based off a deck used in the Hearthstone InnKeepers Invitational at BlizzCon 2013, not too long ago. If you're familiar with the world of Blizzard, with the world of esports, you may have heard of a player or a caster called Artosis. So Artosis won the InnKeepers Invitational, the first quite public Hearthstone competitive tournament. He actually won through a series of 3 decks, and his decks, he had an interesting paladin deck that was very aggressive, came out very early on and was very interesting to watch. I'll put some links in the blog article on failcraft.org to some of his VODs, so you should be able to see those on the Blizzard website. But in the competitive format for the InnKeepers Invitation at BlizzCon, every player who was invited bought 3 decks. If you played a deck and lost, then you couldn't use that deck again in the matchup. So this was Artosis' priest deck that didn't really show up, but I had made a priest deck. I wanted to see what other competitive priest players were playing, so I took a look at his deck, and right over here I copied it as much as I could with the cards that I had. There are a couple of bits dropped in there, for example, that weren't in Artosis' deck. So this is 29 cards out of 30 of what his deck actually was, so I'm just going to quickly run through it and run you through it from a perspective of how I copied it and try to understand it. So when you go to a deck list, you might find a deck list on a forum, you might find it on a website, and they may have a good explanation of how the deck should work. Sometimes it will be card by card, sometimes it will just give a general theme and leave you to work a few things out yourself. So from a previous episode of the Hearthstone Half Hour, we jumped a bit into the real basics of a priest deck. What tools do priests bring to the table? And through looking through the My Collection tool, looking at the priest specific cards, going into crafting mode and including golden cards and similar, we basically ran through in a previous episode how to get a rough understanding of priest from the beginning, seeing what cards there are in the toolkit and what kind of options a priest had. So one thing that we already knew from that episode, I'm not going to go through it again, is the power of priests to buff, to mind control, to have some good draw, and to have some good table control. And by table control I mean keeping minions under control, generally keeping yourself on the front foot, keeping the table clear as possible so you can do what you want to do. So we'll run through the cards and show you some of the concepts of what Artosis' deck, in my opinion, was trying to do, and see how those actually come out into a practical game. So compared to my deck that I tried, which was a little bit less advanced than this a couple of episodes back, you can see a few interesting inclusions. Circle of Healing restores 4 health to all minions. If your opponent doesn't have any minions on the deck, then that's a nice big heal for all of your minions on your side of the table. But in this deck, and there's one card that really means that Circle of Healing can be devastatingly effective in a very different way. You can actually go on the attack with Circle of Healing. And the card that really pins this together is the card called the Organized Soul Priest. Now this is a rare, but you can see that if we jump into this card, it says that your cards and powers that restore health now deal damage instead. Now that's quite a big phrase. It takes getting your head around a little bit, but remember that your priest's power is restoring 2 health for 2 mana. So with one Organized Soul Priest on the table, your priest's restore 2 health immediately becomes do 2 damage. Now bearing in mind that a mage can do 2 damage for do just 1 damage for 2 mana, dropping the Organized Soul Priest immediately means that your priest hero power can ping people. You can pick off little minions, you can finish off other minions, sometimes you can even damage your own minions if that's going to help your cause. So the Organized Soul Priest, when that's dropped on the table in this deck, and I'll fully admit when I first copied this deck I didn't really understand fully the potential possibilities of this card, and to be fair how it worked with some other priest cards. It can really change a game. What happens if you're in a sticky situation and you want to heal yourself? Well, if you've got an Organized Soul Priest on the table, you need to make sure that you kill it, you trade it off for something, or you sacrifice it so that you can start healing yourself again. So don't underestimate it. It's a good example of how, if you're not too careful when copying a deck, you can actually cause yourself some problems. And right here, right now, I'll fully admit to you, the first game that I copied this deck, I dropped the Circle of Healing. I forgot that I had this Organized Soul Priest on the table, and then instead of healing all my minions for 4 health, I ended up wiping half of my minions off the board. Very embarrassing. And that's the kind of thing that solicits that oops emote from your opponent. But I learnt my lesson, and hopefully you will too. Don't blindly copy unless you've had a good look through the deck and understood some of the mechanics behind it. Holy Smite, a cheap 2 damage again, and that is a straight dealing of 2 damage. That's not changed by the Organized Soul Priest. So, Power Word Shield. If you give a minion 2 health, it becomes give a minion 2 damage, I presume. I haven't actually tried that. So this is another example. I presume that restoring health and giving health, it may sound like a semantic difference. I know that the Dark Scale Healer restores health, but the Organised Style Priest says anything that restores health. So whether give is a different mechanic to restore, I actually need to test out. But a very solid priest card anyway. The Light Warden, we've already gone through. Whenever a character is healed, gain 2 attack. A nice cheap card that, if you're throwing a lot of heals around, can get very big and powerful very quickly. The Northshire Cleric is a draw card, as we previously had a look at. Shadowword Pain, straight up table clearance, very efficient for the mana. Shadowword Death, again table clearance. I've only got one of those in here. Could be an argument for 2 Shadowword Deaths if you're coming up against, say, a Mage Giant deck or something with a lot of big, heavy hitting minions. That will be very mana efficient in terms of trading off the table. The Injured Blade Master, Battlecry does 4 damage to himself, so he puts himself down to 4/3. But if you can heal the Blade Master up quickly, then for 3 mana he's a very efficient drop if you have, say, a Circle of Healing or something to heal him up pretty quick. The Organised Soul Priest we've discussed already, a 4 mana 3/5 card, but really it's got that offensive ability. It really lets you suddenly turn the tables and start pinging people, really take deck control. If you drop an Organised Soul Priest and you've got a Circle of Healing, you could wipe a Swarm deck. If you know a Hunter has unleashed the Hounds, if a Shaman is trying to overwhelm you with Murlocs, then dropping that Organised Soul Priest and suddenly doing 4 damage to all your opponent's minions. Do you remember it hits your own minions too? Can really swing the course of a battle. The Spellbreaker, as we've previously had a chat about, it's one of those, solid spine, real core cards in the neutral minions that always has some kind of use. So dropping that silence, whether you're removing a taunt, removing Ragnaros's ability, there's always going to be something that helps out. Holy Nova, a little bit more table clearance, dealing 2 damage to all enemies and restoring health to all nearby characters. Again, it's one of those cards where it lets you keep table control and gives you an additional element, some healing, yes, but also an additional element in terms of against those swarm decks with low health minions. Saved my life many a time. The Abomination, there's only one of him in here, and I was sort of not entirely sure how to play him to start with, but taking a look at him, he's a tank, he's a taunting tank that you can drop in the game. Make sure that you suck up some damage, give you a turn to get set up, but also when he dies he does 2 damage to all characters too. So if your Abomination dies and does 2 damage to enemy minions, you drop a Holy Nova, you've got an Organised Soul Priest and maybe drop a Circle of Healing. It's a way of really clearing the table. Of course, the Abomination again does 2 damage to all your characters. So clever timing and playing of that Organised Soul Priest, and whether you're on the healing mode and getting all of your minions topped up, getting your hero topped up, whether you go on the offensive and drop that Organised Soul Priest and suddenly start, instead of healing, doing damage with all your healing cards. Very key. The Dark Scale Healer is dropped in there as my replacement. Artosis had Prophet Velen in his deck, and if we take a quick look at Prophet Velen, you can see very much how, in terms of synergy concepts that we've gone through before, how Prophet Velen fits in. So Prophet Velen actually doubles the damage and healing of your spells and hero power. So if you've got an Organised Soul Priest down, instead of doing 4 damage, you're then suddenly doing 8 damage with a Velen down. And remember, of course, that Circle of Healing costs 0 mana. So I really want to get Velen into my deck. I need to save up a little bit more dust. I went on a enchanting spree and created a lot of Paladin cards. Maybe I'll disenchant those Paladin cards and actually get myself a Velen. But you can see he really fits in well with this deck. Holy Fire, deal 5 damage, restore 5 health to your hero. Naturally, you're not probably going to want to be playing that with an Organised Soul Priest on the table, but you can see the potential. Not only can you pick off a big minion, do some damage to your opposing player's hero, at the same time you can heal yourself too. So expensive in money, yes, but it has a lot of good situational uses. But you generally want to be playing Holy Fire in a situation where you get the most healing benefit and you can deal the most damage. So if I was killing a one health minion with Holy Fire and only healing myself for 1, that's very mana inefficient. But if I'm doing the full amount of damage, 5 damage to a minion or a hero, and being healed for the most possible, that's when Holy Fire comes into its own and is the most efficient possible. Argent Commander, this has been slightly nerfed down with the recent patch. It's one of the cards that was deemed a little bit too powerful, and the change has actually come through is that it's got a little bit less health than before. But with Charge, it can attack the first go. With Divine Shield, it effectively gets 1 free trade against something, providing the 4 damage it does knock something out. So still a pretty solid card. Good in the mid to late game for setting up some trades and trying to get rid of any big ugly minions in your opponent's half of the table that are coming up mid to late game. Ragnaros, Again, a good late game finisher. There's not many decks he's not good in, but in this he jumps in there, and if I've kept the table clear with this deck until the late game, then I come out swinging with Ragnaros. And finally Mind Control, and you'll see that Mind Control is now 10 mana rather than 8 mana. Was judged to be a little bit overpowered by Blizzard, so they're trying that as a balance change. Initially playing with it, it is a little bit less powerful. I'm not going to say it's useless. Taking the right minion with Mind Control can still change the course of a game. So when copying a deck list, or when taking inspiration from a deck list, or when trying out someone else's deck, sure, copy it card for card for as many cards as you can, but do bear in mind that if it's a top competitive deck list or something that someone's played a lot, then chances are that every card in there should have some kind of contribution. It's doing something towards the theme of the deck. So understanding what the deck's core theme, what the solid spine of the deck is in terms of neutral minions, what the theme is, what it's trying to achieve, and then looking at synergy and combos, what cards work well with each other, what cards combo well with each other. So in terms of copying a deck list, just remember that first point. You need to understand the theme, you need to understand card synergy, and you need to understand also that the more cards you can't put into the deck and you fill in with other things, probably the less powerful the deck is becoming, because it's been designed with a purpose. And when I've played in 60 card trading card games before in tournaments, you'll find yourself looking at your deck and thinking, should I change one card? Should I drop that one card in for situational purposes? It's something called deck teching, and in a 60 card deck, one card can make a difference. In a 30 card deck, one card can definitely make a difference. So just bear in mind, understand the themes, understand the synergy of the cards, any combos that are in the deck, and above all, do remember that the less of the cards that you can actually make, so if you can't make and use most of the cards in that deck, if not all of them, then every card that you're switching is potentially something that is detracting from the strength of the deck, detracting from the theme of the deck. Having said that, there's nothing like practice. So when you've put your copied deck list together, I would absolutely jump into practice mode or jump into unranked mode and see how it works in terms of themes and the cards. So for our second part of this episode, we are going to jump into a ladder game, and in this ladder game we're going to run through some of the concepts that we've got going here. Welcome to those who have just joined us in the Hearthstone Half Hour. I'm Hammy from felcroft.org, and today we are taking a look at how to copy and get inspiration from a deck list you find online safely, and then how you can take it into practice. Things you should remember, things you shouldn't remember, and generally seeing how it will work in a competitive environment. So I'm about rank 18 on the ladder at the moment, and we've got a rogue as our opponent. So I've already got my Organized Soul Priest. You can see that in Ragnaros the Fire Lord and in Mind Control I've got two very late game cards. They're no good in the starting hand, and I'm also going second. There is a good argument to say I should get rid of this Organized Soul Priest as well. Going second, I can get it out that little bit earlier. I'm going to risk it. There's a reasonable argument there for trading in all of your big spend cards. Turns out I've actually been quite lucky there. I've drawn a Light Warden, so another 1 mana card, and a Shadow Word Pain for a 2 mana card. So along with my coin, I'm in a good position to play a nice quick early hand. There's nothing on my first turn here. I can't Shadow Word Pain anything away. There's no point playing my coin. There is an argument for the Light Warden to keep it until you can actually start throwing down heals. Don't feel pressured to play something just to use up mana. However, most of the time with a good deck design you're going to be wanting to try and drop something most turns and use your mana as much as you can, but without using it for the sake of it.
This is our town, scrub.
Now you can see that the rogue here, because he wasn't able to play anything before, has now not actually managed to activate the combo on that card, so he could have got an extra minion. So we're turn 2 here. I can immediately destroy that, so in terms of the theme of the deck, I'm going to keep control of the table as much as I can. Now I could then mana up with the coin and draw an extra card for the 2 health. I'm going to keep it just in case of the Organized Soul Priest. Sip of green tea there. So far we're going okay. I wouldn't say that I don't feel in control. this rogue is really yet to show his hand. He's not summoned any weapons. Naturally, this guy could pick me off straight away at this point in time. I want to be able to heal him. He might decide to try and damage me. With 3 more on the table, I could outreach for the Organized Soul Priest. Or the alternative is drawing a card with Power Word Shield. I don't need the Organized Soul Priest right away. Dropping the Soul Priest could let me potentially trade this off the table next turn with the additional coin. I'm going to keep my options open for the moment and draw a card. So with 3 mana left on the table, that's a little bit frustrating. It could be an interesting option here. By healing his hero, I could buff up the attack of my Light Warden. So that may or may not be a good move. We'll see if I lose by 1 health at the end, but you shouldn't forget in Hearthstone you can heal your opponent's cards and things as well as your own, and you can also damage your own cards. 1 health is not much at this stage in the game. However, giving my Light Warden 3 attack means that if he tries to trade, I'll keep my card on the table and he'll be down, and I can also heal him as well. So, Chillwind Yeti, an excellent card. The 4 attack of the Chillwind Yeti puts it just out of reach of a lot of priest removal spells. So we need to make a few decisions as to how we're going to get that away. That's a bit of a danger. The Organized Soul Priest would probably just get traded off the table at this point in time because he will summon a 2/1 golem. 2 damage will let me pick something off. I could just about, I think, get this Yeti off the table. I'm picking that so that I can have the additional health. I can survive 1 attack from this Yeti. That's me to get that away. You can then see that I can Holy Smite the Yeti off the table. I do have 1 interesting option here, so note that I can drop a Light Warden, gain a Mana Crystal, heal my Light Warden, and then you note that I've buffed both of those as well. So I did have options. There was nothing really for me to Spellbreaker, nothing for me to death. The Organized Soul Priest would have probably just been a target, so that was a little bit of a convoluted combo there. But what it let me do was take away what was a potentially a very dangerous minion, and also allowed me to keep 2 pretty strong attacking cards on the table. And you can also notice that because this Light Warden has what should be a total of 6 health from 2 Power Word Shields, I can also heal it again. So if I heal it again, I get another 2 attack on both my Light Wardens. And rightly, because it's dangerous, he's wanting to trade down and get it off the table. What options do we have now? It's a shame. If I'd saved my coin, I could have dropped an Organized Soul Priest and taken this guy out for free. As is, I'm going to have to leave him there. He's still quite painful, so I may be well advised to trade him off the table anyway, and then set myself up for a sweep. So those Spellbreakers are not going to do too much. There's nothing really for me to silence. There's nothing really for me to heal. So I'm going to risk dropping the Organized Soul Priest, but I'm going to get rid of that 4 attack Stormpike Commando. So we're about 6 turns into the game now, and at this point the board's, it's 50-50. I've got a reasonable amount of control, but I'm feeling good because I've got rid of a couple of his quite painful minions already. The Chillwind Yeti can be quite painful. That Stormpike Commando, if I'd left it going, could have been quite painful. So given that I went second, I'm not on the back foot and things are pretty even. And I've also got some good tools in my hand. I can trade with an Argent Commander, I can death away a big painful minion, and I can silence with the Spellbreaker. And then I already have my Organized Soul Priest in play if I want to start trying to drop things off. Stealthy Worgen Infiltrator there. And Ragnaros is there for later in the game if I see fit. Okay, so what options do we have here? I've got 6. Now 6 is not going to let me pick anything off the table. I don't have a tank to taunt. That Fin Creeper let's face it, if I don't heal my Organized Soul Priest, it's going to be off the table in pretty short order. Let's have a think. Now, I can't trade immediately with my Argent Commander, otherwise that would have been a very strong drop. I could trade away my Organized Soul Priest to get the tank off the table. That will mean that I don't have any opportunity to ping with it. However, the threat of it is automatically made him attack it, and leaving that Fen Creeper on the table for longer would probably be a bit more dangerous. I'm not going to... I can't ping the Worgen Infiltrator because he's got stealth. Healing this minion would keep it alive for one more turn. I do have the option of just getting another minion on the table and starting to try and build it up, but I'm going to be quite aggressive here and stay on the offensive. Now, trading away that Organized Soul Priest so early is not ideal, but if I'd played, because he's got that stealth minion down there, I've decided that I'm not going to be too passive. 2 damage. The power of backstab. I've managed to keep his tank off the table.
Behold the might of Stormwind!
This is where my Shadow of Death is going to be in very handy indeed. Okay, so I've got some good options here. So there's again no real point in terms of spell breaking anything right now. Getting rid of that Stormwind champion with my Shadow of Death, exactly what Shadow of Death is in there for. I can drop a 4 or a 3. In terms of trading something away, keeping 2 spellbreakers in hand is perhaps a little excessive. So not quite enough mana left to heal the injured Blade Master, but he's a threat enough he can trade away that Worgen for nothing. If the rogue has got a weapon in his hand, he could use the weapon. If he's got a spell of some particular kind, he could trade it away. But dropping that Blade Master keeps a bit of pressure on. And using that Battlecry ability of doing 2 damage, he's using his hero with the 1 attack weapon to trade it away, and at the same time keep his attacking threats on the board there. Now, we talked earlier in the game about the use of Holy Nova. Perhaps slightly excessive at this point in time, but the alternative would be dropping 2 Spellbreakers. Now that would put a big threat up. Could perhaps be a solid option. I let those 2 attack again next go and then clear them off. I'm going to take a more defensive move there. My remaining move heals me out. Now, dropping 2 Spellbreakers, it would have wasted the Battlecry of Silence a minion because there's nothing really for me to silence on the deck right now. A 6 and 2/3s move. Keeping the field clear is good, but also getting some minions down is pretty solid too. If he sweeps a lot of minions down on the table, then maybe you can see a lot of 2 health minions here. My Holy Nova could have also been used this go as well. Dropping the Spellbreakers would keep the pressure on. Dropping Ragnaros immediately makes him a target. While these guys are on the table, it's perhaps not the most efficient use either. As an experimental move, I'm going to get a lot of stuff down on the deck. So that is a waste of 2 good silences. I may live to regret that. However, what it does is put pressure. He now needs to start thinking of how he's going to get these minions off the table. Dropping Ragnaros, there's as much of a chance with Ragnaros' ability that he would have done 8 damage to a 2 health minion and then got binned by something in this rogue's hand. So dropping Raggy, you either drop it when your opponent's got no minions on the table, in the best case scenario, so you do a guaranteed 8 damage to your enemy hero, or you do it when you have a tank. And when you have a tank, you know that Ragnaros is at least going to survive a couple of turns. And if he doesn't do damage to the hero, at least he takes out a few minions. Now in this situation we can see that I might still have some good 1 to every minion and draw a card. So he's effectively set up a lot of good trades there. Yep, that's one of my minions down. Maybe another one of the minions down. He's gone to take the draw card away and left me with an option as to what I do next. 2 attack means that he can then pick off my final minion. Now he's taking a fair amount of damage on his hero here, but he's trying to keep board control, and I don't have draw. There's not a really huge option here for me apart from to gamble. So let's hope that he gets rid of a minion. No, he's done it to the hero. So what that does is it puts pressure on him to do 8 damage to me, which he can do this go. Saving Ragnaros, I could have done that at this point, but putting the pressure on is probably good. You can see that he's got 9 damage on the deck. 5, that assassinate takes away Raggy. So although I have a lot of health, you'll notice that my draw is drying up, and having a Northshire Cleric on the table still would have been good. Whenever a minion is healed, draw a card. I don't really want to healing the opponent's minion for 1 health could make the difference. However, I do need cards. If I leave that there and don't do anything, I could kind of do with some card options, so I'm going to risk it. The Darkscale Healer again lets me, and if I'd had some damage on the table this would have been beneficial, but you know what, getting that minion down again puts some pressure on the rogue at least to keep thinking. He's got to decide, does he trade away the minions, does he not trade away the minions? Sitting still for too long at this point in time, healing your opponent's minions is never something you really want to do, but if it gives you the options that you need in a pinch, then it can be worth considering. A painful weapon there in the Assassin's Blade.
This guy's toast.
And this I7, a little bit like MI5 for all those James Bond spy fans. Now what does he do? Well, he's got 3, 6, 9, 12 damage on the tail. He's electing to destroy my draw cards, very sensible, and because he's got the minions on the deck, he's in a very good position. However, I can drop that tank. If he decides to drop it, it will drop some of his minions. He's got a lot of damage he can do there. So I, at the moment, having been in quite a strong position, I'm in a little bit of trouble. I have done a lot of damage to, you know, my opponent here, but because he's got minion control, he's got his weapon out, and because I'm low on card draw at this point in time, he does have an advantage. And if I don't, beg pardon me, get the table cleared quite soon, then we could be in a bit of trouble. So at the moment I'm effectively top decking. I'm waiting for this card desperately, and maybe a better decision would have been to withhold my Northshire Cleric until I knew I could get a real good set of card draw out of it. He is elected to trade. And pull ahead with a swarm. So he is playing a risky game here. Mind control. Right, let's have a think. There's really only a trade advantage here. So I don't really want to be spending a mind control, but in this situation it forces him to consider bidding one of his minions. Now, it will effectively stop him doing 3 damage to me next go. So for that reason I'm going to have to play it. Whatever minion I mind control he can kill next go, so I'm going to go for the one that does the most damage. Now if he uses anything apart from his hero, I'm keeping that circle of healing just in case I pull an Orcanized Soul Priest. I could heal it for 3, but again, anything he can, I mean, unless he tried to trade, he can trade with his 1/1. That was a mistake by me.
Don't mess with Tusk.
I could really do with an Orcanized Soul Priest about now. I know there's one in there. So now he can do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But he's only got 1 left on that weapon, so what I need to do is just limit the damage as much as I can. So let's Shadowwood Pain one of those guys away, heal up one of those. going to take another 3, 4, 5, 6 next go. You can summon another 1 attack weapon. It's really just a top decking waiting game. Now at this stage it's good to know what you've got left in your deck. I've got an Organized Soul Priest in there still, which will let me clear all of these minions away. I do have another Argent Commander. I've got some big cards with charge. I've got Holy Fires as well that will also let me do 5 damage to him. So the question is, can I survive long enough to draw something I actually need? It's going to be down to the wire because he can do 4 damage and I have no idea what he's got in his hand. If he draws a powerful minion, this could be it. Anything with charge. No, he's plugging away. I hope he's not got a weapon. He could draw something there. Come on. Holy Nova. Thank goodness. So at least that gives me another healing option. It will do another 2 damage to him. So it will pick away, not everything, but it picks away something at least. Keeps me in the game for another all-important turn, but he is also drawing cards. 8 cards in the opponent's deck, 7 cards in my deck, and he draws another with the Novice Engineer. The odds at this point in time of him pulling something above me are probably better. Ooh, what have we got? It means he can play that Novice Engineer again to draw another card. Good combo. And the chance of him pulling a big painful minion keep increasing. That's the thing that's really going to hurt me at this point in time. What has he got? He's twitching his hand there over that card. 4 damage he can do to me at this point in time, and I know that I've got 2 Holy Fires. Fan of Knives lets him draw another card. He's really fishing for whatever's left in his deck. Powerful minion. +1/+1. Lets him do 5 damage this go. So, what comes down to what I draw next turn. This is the definition of top decking.
Well played.
So that is lucky. It was a good game. I knew that I had 2 Holy Fires left in that deck, and I also knew that I had an Orkanai Soul Priest. So the Orkanai Soul Priest with my 2 circles of healing would have let me clear all his minions, so that would have been a good top draw. Knowing your deck is also pretty important. In that situation I knew that with what I had left in there I had to try and stall as much as I could, and maybe I got lucky, maybe I didn't. In this case I got lucky, but in trading card games there's always an element of luck. So thank you very much for tuning in for that episode. In this episode what we did, we had a bit of a chat about looking at deck lists, how you copy a deck list safely. So if you want to try out a deck that you've seen online, be it on Hearthhead, Hearthporn, the official Hearthstone forums, all you got to do is make sure that you copy it as much as you can with the cards that you have. Make sure that you understand what the cards do. If you're not familiar with some of the cards, you look for a theme. Are there any combos or any sort of synergy between cards? So with the Orkanai Soul Priest, we saw that Orkanai Soul Priest and Circle of Healing can do some interesting damage. And then finally, bearing in mind that the more cards you can get in there, so ideally you want to copy an entire deck list, because every single card in that deck list should matter. It should do something towards helping the deck run smoothly, and for every card that you can't copy in a deck list that you're looking at, the less effective the deck will be. And then finally, after you've tried understanding a deck list, you've got to look at the themes in it, any synergy, any particularly good combos. Looked at some cards and learnt them if you don't understand them, perhaps through using my collection, then taking it into a competitive game, or just taking it into a practice mode game against a bot, or even just a competitive game but unranked. I went into ranked in this situation because it's been a couple of days since I've played a ranked game, so I wanted to get in there. But then having a look at some of those concepts of the Artosis Priest deck in action. What I will do is, when I post this video, I'll pop a few links to felcraft.org with the corresponding article, so you can have a look at my blog and you can see the Artosis deck list itself. So if you want to copy it, you can give it a go, and I'll also write a little bit more about a few of the themes that we've talked about in this episode. Thank you very much for tuning in. This has been the Hearthstone Half Hour, or Hour in this case. My name's Hammy. If you're interested in more content, please, and I'm just going to jump onto the overlay piece now so you can have a look. Thank you very much. Always appreciate you watching. Please rate and comment if you're on YouTube, rate if you're on Twitch as well. If you're seeing this on the website, please share it if you like it. Drop a comment. We've got Discuss now. I've been doing a bit of work on the site. You may have seen we've had a bit of a revamp in the last few days as well. So please, whether you liked it, whether you don't like it, if you did like it, great, let us know. If you don't like it, do vote on it, but please, if you didn't like it or think there's something I could improve, please comment. I don't mind if you comment and say how I can improve things. If you don't like it and think I can do it better, I just need to know. And as a quick sign off, we're on Twitter at FelcraftCasts. Lots more Hearthstone stuff coming. We're going to look at some more deck lists, probably a mage next time out, and take more of a look at ladder and the new ladder changes in the patch. On YouTube, we're FelcraftCasts. On twitch.tv, if you want to watch live, then we're FelcraftCast, no S on the end of that one. And finally, if you want to tune in on the website, we are felcraft.org. You can find a bunch of Hearthstone articles there. We cover Hearthstone, StarCraft 2, we take a look at League of Legends and a bunch of other games and similar besides. So thank you very much for tuning in. We are hoping to step up over Christmas with a few more episodes, so we're aiming to be out 5 or 6 days a week. Very exciting, looking forward to it a lot. Thank you very much.